All the way to Mexico. This is the second or third time we've been down there. And she always comes back happy and vibrant. And this year, I think several of the people went with you. She's meeting all kinds of people, gets to go to the ocean and different things. And so she's going to share some of her experiences. And I asked her to add into it to her journey into Orthodoxy, since we've been covering that in some of our classes and stuff. So she's going to do that too. Anna, sure.
I don't know, let's see, I gave kind of a similar talk last year and just talked about Project Mexico and St. Innocent Orphanage as an organization and their ministries and my involvement with them. So I know that some of you haven't heard me talk about it, so first I'll just kind of explain what Project Mexico and St. Innocent Orphanage are. So there's two Orthodox ministries, but they're kind of one nonprofit organization, and they are run down in Rosarito, Mexico, which is in Baja California, super close to the border. So St. Innocent Orphanage is an all-boys orphanage, and right now they have 20 boys. Most of the ages are between 12 and 16, and then their oldest, I believe, is 20, and the youngest boys are 7 and 8. So it's on this big property. It used to be a horse ranch, actually, and so that's where the boys live. And then during the summer, the ranch hosts lots of volunteers, and that's kind of where the home building program comes in, and that's called Project Mexico. And they build houses for families in the community for 8 weeks during the summer. And so each house takes 1 week, and most of our groups have between 50 and 150 people. And so in a week we'll build normally between 2 and 4 houses. We'll have like 20 people on one house. So that's how that works. My involvement, my first time as a volunteer was the summer after I graduated high school. I had kind of a unique experience with Project Mexico because I went with a super small group. There were only 13 of us, and I haven't seen that happen since I've been there. So it was a really cool experience for me. And that just kind of like changed everything for me. Being around the boys at the orphanage, who are just a joy to be around, who are hilarious and full of so much life. Despite coming from very broken and abusive backgrounds, like they're just so loved by this team that takes care of them at the orphanage, and so loved by volunteers and interns. So anyway, that just like, I was just amazed to see that. And then also the family that we built for, like it was, I can't even really put it into words. It was such a humbling experience and such, it's just amazing to have the opportunity to serve someone in such a tangible way, but also just to have that opportunity to create, or to have a relationship with that person, to like get to know them, to, you know, it's a unique environment to be in, to have that opportunity. So yeah, so my first trip, it's a 6-day trip. You spend 4 of those days building, and during that time, you have a very structured schedule. So you have morning prayers together at like 7 a.m. You have quiet time and breakfast, and you get ready to leave for the day, and then you're out of the ranch by 9 or 10, and then you work until around 4. And then you come back to the ranch, you hang out with the boys, you kind of do whatever's going on, and then you have dinner together, and then you have evening prayers, and then we have talks and just kind of like fellowship, hanging out, getting to know each other. As half of our services are in Spanish, so that was also kind of a cool thing for me. I was learning Spanish, and being there just kind of gave me this like new motivation to continue learning. We have Vespers together, liturgy, and so really it's just you get to be a part of this incredible community, and yeah, there's just really not words for it. It's such a beautiful thing. So after my first time as a volunteer, I was like, hey, I want to come back. And I noticed that there were these interns, and they're the ones that lead the home building, teach you how to, you know, use a hammer, put the walls together. And I was like, I want to be one of those guys. Not because I'm good with the hammer, because I definitely wasn't, but because I just wanted to be there for as long as I could. So the following summer, I went down as an intern for a month, and I loved it. And so the next summer, I went down for 2 months. And then this past summer, I went down for 10 weeks. And it was, every time I learned even more, and met just lifelong friends, and is really encouraging me and motivated me to take my faith seriously, and to be present with people and to serve them and love them. And it has really shown me the importance of relationships with God and with those around me, and seeing Christ in everybody. So kind of, I guess, going away from that, I was so excited about all of this, and I would go home every summer and be like blab to my family about it for weeks, and they would get so tired of me like telling the same stories. And so this past summer I had so much fun because I got to have two of my sisters. I have 4 younger sisters, some of you guys know. The 2 middle ones, well, yeah, pretty much middle, Claire and Audrey. Claire is 15, she's 16? 15, just kidding, 15, okay, she's turning 16 next year. 15, and Audrey, who's 16. They came for a week as volunteers, and they actually got to be on my site. I was a site leader once this summer, and it was quite the experience, but it was really wonderful, like having them on my site and getting to like just, I don't know, serve with them and show them all these wonderful things that I've been blabbing about for forever. And they had a great experience. Audrey is constantly talking about how she wants to go back, and trying to convince Claire to go back too. It was so wonderful to get to share that with them. And so part of this talk is also thanking you guys, because last year, some of you may remember, we did a lot of fundraising, and we wouldn't have been able to go if it wasn't for your guys' help. Like, that means so much to us. It was a beautiful thing, and I hope that all of you have the chance to experience something like that, or to go yourselves. I even have pictures to show you if you're interested later. So that was kind of the summer in a nutshell. It was really beautiful. We had kind of a different summer this summer. So for the past, I think, 27 years, Project Mexico has been building the same home design, and it was pretty simple. It was a wooden frame. They didn't use any power tools, mostly kind of for like liability issues, but also like power tools are expensive, and it's easier to teach volunteers how to use non-hand tools faster than it is power tools, theoretically. And so we built the same home design for 27 years, and it worked well. It was weatherproof, it was great, and then we had new leadership this past summer. And so a month before our summer of home building began, they're like, we're changing the design. And we're all like, what? Okay. And so our new home building design, it uses metal framing, and so we use power tools, and it was quite an experience. It's about double the size of the former house. I should also explain kind of what the house is like. So the houses that we build are very simple. There's no electricity, there's no running water, but the idea is that it's a weatherproof shelter. So the families we build for, they have to own their land, Because if they don't, then there's a risk of them losing their land to the government or somebody else, and we don't want to build a house and then just have them lose it. So we build for families who own their land. And land in that area of Mexico is normally between like $15,000 to $20,000. But the government, and it's a small plot of land, like under an acre. I don't really know how big an acre is. It's small. It's like the size of the sanctuary.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for that. So a small plot of land, it's normally pretty dusty, but it's in these, they're called colonias. They're like small towns, kind of on the outskirts of Rosarito, which is kind of like the bigger city. But the colonias are huge. There's tons of people. You mostly kind of see like a mixture of shacks and houses and then more shacks, and it's really driving down those dusty dirt roads. There's a lot of disparity in socioeconomic status. So anyway, let me get back to my point. So we build for families that own their land, and normally the way we meet them is we're either referred to them by a Mexican social worker that we work with, or, and this is probably the majority of our referrals, is we'll be building and then somebody walks by the work site and they're like, hey, can I have a house? And we're like, all right, give me your contact info, and like we'll get an application started. So that's how we find most of our people. It's just kind of word of mouth. So they apply, and then we do it on a needs basis. The families with the most need will get the houses first. They have to own their land. Normally, before the families get their house, they're normally either living in an apartment nearby, which is kind of a crappy situation because they're one, paying rent for their apartment, and they're two, paying land payments on their land. And land payments are actually, in my opinion, I think pretty reasonable. They're normally between $50 and like $200 a month. But that's really tough for the families because normally only like if it's a mom and dad and some kids, normally the dad is the only one who's working. So mom has to stay back with the kids for childcare. And normally he makes a pretty small amount. And so they just kind of barely get by with land payments. For most of the families that we build for, they're normally like a month or two behind on their land payments. So anyway, apartment, living with other family members, either in an apartment or a house, and that normally means you have really crowded living quarters, and it's just unhealthy and unsafe. And then we have a lot of families who live on their land, and they're kind of living in shacks, again, unhealthy and unsafe. So the idea is that we give them this house, and unfortunately it doesn't have electricity, unfortunately it doesn't have running water. I hope that's something that we can do in the future, but the idea is that it like eases their financial burden. So they don't have to be living in an apartment where they're paying rent, and they don't have to be, living in unsafe conditions. They have this house, and they can focus on land payments and doing more additions to the house without having to pay to actually build the house. And all of the labor that we do for this house is volunteers. The volunteers come from normally just Orthodox churches in the States and actually a few in Canada. So that's how we build our houses. Everything is donated. The organization runs completely off of donations. So we have like a few programs that they do for that. So every volunteer has to pay like a work trip fee, and that helps pay for the all the costs of the week, whether that be food, whatever, but also the building costs for the house. So that is one of the ways that we kind of fund this organization. Some of that money goes towards the orphanage. And the orphanage has its own programs. They have pantry partners. They have Santa's helpers, school buddies, and faithful friends. So you can sponsor a boy for school, which is actually super needed right now because I think 4 or 5 of the boys got accepted to private school, which is super exciting because they were working really hard in middle school. Now they get to go to private school. So you can sponsor a boy for school. You can also sponsor a boy for Christmas. Normally, like, churches will come together and sponsor a boy for Christmas. You get to buy all these presents. It's kind of cool. And then Faithful Friends is just like giving monthly, donating whatever you can. And then Pantry Partners is just donating food to the kitchen, which is actually probably one of their biggest needs. I think 2 months ago, they ran out of donations, and so they had to go out and buy food themselves, which isn't good because that means they're going into debt. So, but one of the cool parts about Pantry Partners is if you collect 20 boxes, then a truck will come pick it up for free and take it to the orphanage. So yeah, I'm sorry, this is kind of all over the place, but that is kind of what Project Mexico is all about. Getting involved is fairly easy. They have a really user-friendly website. You just look up Project Mexico and St. Innocent Orphanage, it'll be the first one that shows up. If you're interested in home building, like going as a volunteer, we really have volunteers of all ages. Like, we've had volunteers that are like 85, and we have volunteers that are like 12. And there's really a spot for everyone. Like, I didn't know how to use a hammer, and then I became a home building intern, so, you know, go figure. But, you know, it's a really wonderful environment. Everybody's encouraging, positive, and loving, and really wants to grow close together and grow closer to God. So, anyway, registration normally opens in October. They post all of the trip dates. I think the work trip fee is around $500, $500. And then you have to pay for transportation to get there. But other than that, everything else is covered. And it happens during the summer. They have one group that's in during spring break, but that's normally college students. And they have like a new fall programs that they're doing as well, so you can check that out on their website. But also giving is a huge help to them. And so, yeah, that's Project Mexico, that's St. Innocent Orphanage. It's been a huge blessing to me. I hope that I can continue to work with them. I guess in terms of kind of like how it impacted me, a lot of people call it missions. And I guess in a sense it is missions, but it's not really focused on evangelism. It's focused on serving people and building relationships with them. And that's, I think, one of the incredible things about this opportunity is that you get to meet people from an entirely different world, honestly. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to live in the conditions that some of these families live in a shack with no running water, with no electricity, with 4 kids, and a job that is absolutely miserable. And it's incredible because you meet these families and, you know, life has to be tough. But they do it, and they do it with a smile on their face, and they're hospitable and kind, and it blows your mind. It's amazing that you are literally just standing right in front of them, and you're shaking your hand, and you're practicing Spanish with them, even though you're like stumbling all over the place. But it is such an honor to get to meet these people and see how they live and learn from them. And so for me, Project Mexico has been less of missions and more of a service learning experience. It's been about building relationships. It's about learning from their culture, learning from how they live their life, and how I can better serve them and be a better friend to them, honestly. And so it really changed everything for me. I went into college thinking I was going to do elementary education, and then I changed to social work because I wanted to learn how to help people in the messiest situations. And that was kind of inspired by the families that I met and the boys that I met while I was there. I mean, yeah, it's changed everything. It's changed my worldview. It's changed, yeah, there's not really much more to say other than that. But yeah, so that's kind of my experience. Yeah, Father asked me to say kind of how I found Orthodoxy. I was born Orthodox, not super thrilling, but I think it really became important, like the beauty of Orthodoxy and the relevancy of it, and I don't even know how to put it into words, but my faith became serious to me once I started going on these trips. So yeah, do you guys have any questions or thoughts?
How did you become involved in Project Mexico?
Yeah, so I've been hearing about it for a long time. I don't really remember the first time I heard about it. Like my dad had been on trips before, and we had people in our church that had gone before, and so I always wanted to go, but I never kind of got around to it. And then my dad said to me, like, when I graduated high school, you can go on a trip, where do you want to go? And so initially I was going to go to New York, and I was like, yeah, New York. And then his good friend, who's a priest in Arizona, had a group that was going to Mexico, and it was a youth group, and one of my like childhood friends was going, and I was like, actually, can I go to Mexico? And so that's how that started.
Curious about what kind of building materials
Yeah.
used for the houses.
Totally. So we use prefabricated metal panels, and they're really light. They're pretty kind of like malleable. We use just basic power drills, and we screw the panels together.
So you're screwing them together?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And then we mix and pour our own concrete. That's the foundation. Day 2, we put all the panels together. We set the panels up, bolt it into the foundation, bolt them together, put the roof on, and then we take chicken wire and we wrap the house in chicken wire. And then day 3, we see what happens day 3. Finish up chicken wire if there's any chicken wire left. Start putting the plywood on the roof. And then we use stucco. Anybody not? It's like a cement mixture. I'm not sure how familiar people are with these things, but anyway. So we mix our own stucco, we put stucco up, and then the house has 2 windows and a door that locks, and so we start installing those, and then, so what is that? That's day 3. Okay, so day 4, we put on our second layer of stucco, make sure doors and windows are in, we finish the roof. We just have like this kind of, it's a really interesting roofing material that you like roll it out, and it has like this kind of plastic underneath it. Take it off, there's tar underneath, so you just roll it onto the roof. So no hammering or nailing, screwing or anything like that, just sticks on.
You got plywood?
Mm-hmm. We have like fascia on the, plywood and then fascia along the edge of the roof. Sorry, I'm not very good at building. I'm like mediocre at best, but I enjoy it. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of the basic house.
So in 4 days with the prefab, you build like twice the size of the house you did
Yes.
previously?
Yes. I think it's 14 feet by 21 feet. Really small. But it's kind of like 2 rooms because there's an interior wall, and we don't put a door on the interior wall, but that's an option if the family wants to do that. So.
Yeah, 2 questions. One, what is the flooring? And the other is, do you know approximately how much each house costs in American dollars?
Okay, so flooring is concrete. We don't put anything else down. But I know that a lot of families put down their own tile, so that's the thing. And I believe the cost of the house, I think it might be $4,000, $2,000 to $4,000, I can't remember. Yeah. Any more questions?
Can you talk a little bit about what someone who's interested in sending their child would experience on the ranch? You talked a lot about the housing, the building, but what is life like on the ranch?
Yeah, so that's a good question because the ranch is a lot of fun. And that was probably Audrey and Claire's favorite part of being in Project Mexico, was being on the ranch. So you can't really talk about life at the ranch unless you kind of explain how it's set up. So the ranch is kind of on this hill, like kind of like this. On the top of the hill, you have the life of the orphanage, basically. You have the boys' rooms, you have the kitchen, the chapel, the classrooms. We have a homeschooling program for middle schoolers. And you have like the basketball court where they play basketball and soccer. And so that's kind of like where orphanage life happens. All the boys are Orthodox. They're Orthodox by choice. And then at the bottom of the ranch is basically where all the home building program is hosted. So all the home building staff kind of live at the bottom, and then you also have, so most of our volunteers stay in tents while they come and volunteer. We have like this big pavilion where we have church, and also where we eat all our meals. And then you have kind of like a little store where you can buy like Project Mexico merchandise and all that. And then we have like fire pits where we have like some of our talks. And anyway, so sorry, I'm just kind of like setting this up. But basically, so most of the kids that do come are 14 years and older, and that's probably kind of like the sweet spot for deciding if a child should come. Normally if they're under 14, I mean, they can still have a wonderful experience, but like it is labor intensive, and so you kind of have to go into that knowing that, and be willing to do that, and know that you're going to be tired and probably hurting. It's wonderful, but that can be kind of stressful for younger kids. So I think 14 and up is a good rule of thumb. But there's tons of interactions with the boys. The boys really love volunteers. They come and eat dinner with them and eat breakfast with them. And we have all of our services together. We have, every week, we have a bonfire with the boys. We eat s'mores, and they love messing with people and teasing people. That's most of the interaction is just teasing, which is, you know, it's funny. They love to play like ninja. I don't know if you guys have heard. They love soccer and basketball. And yeah, they'll just sit with you and talk with you, and like we have lots of card games, and they can play checkers and all kinds of stuff. So that's kind of like the interaction with the orphanage as far, and like that's true of adults too. I mean, the boys kind of do the same thing for everyone. They just tease and play games. And so, yeah, does that answer the question?
Can you talk a little bit about meals and everything?
Oh yeah, okay. So we, as volunteers, we eat together in the morning for breakfast. Meals are normally, you're pretty much always going to have beans, rice, and tortillas for everything. If it's morning, you're probably going to have eggs as well. And then lunchtime we eat on site, and so it's either peanut butter and jelly or tuna. And we also have animal crackers, pretzels, and fruit, and it never changes. That is exactly what we eat every single lunch, at least while we're on site. And then when we come back, we have dinner, and we have cooks that work at the orphanage, and so they cook all the meals. Again, beans, rice, tortilla, and then it kind of varies on what else you have. Sometimes it's soup, sometimes it's chicken, sometimes it's chilaquiles, which is like nachos, but kind of different. We have a lot of fish tacos, which I recently found out I'm allergic to, which, anyway, sad. Yeah, and that's, I think, probably one of the most fun times to interact with the boys, is talk with them over a meal. As an intern, I'm there when volunteers aren't there, so I kind of get to do more interaction, and when volunteers aren't there, we basically do a bunch of chores. We also get to do fun things. We get to go to the beach. It's like 5 minutes from the beach. And so we'll go on camping trips, we'll go to a water park, we'll go to the market, we'll play like capture the flag and soccer and basketball, and we'll eat all of our meals together. And there's some really good taquerias nearby. Tacos are the best. So. Oh, and as a volunteer, if you get done with your work day early, normally like 3, 4, sometimes before that, then we'll take groups out to ice cream or tacos. So that's food. Maybe more than you wanted to know about food. Is that everything? Yeah. Thanks for letting me talk.
We're all so proud of you. God bless you. You want to go back next summer?
I don't know. It depends on what happens. So I would love to if I could.
Inshallah. Okay. God bless you. And next week, Ron's going to do this stuff. And we've got all kinds of people scheduled as time goes by. Thank you, Chairman.